Well, hello there, my dear children of the apocalypse, and welcome to another episode of the Doomtime podcast. My guest today is the longest lasting member of my moderator team. Quetzal from Poland has been around the channel since 2014. That is 9 years that we've known each other, and I'm actually hearing his voice, as far as my memory goes, for the first time, and so are going to many of you. Now, Quetzal respects his privacy. He's a very closed-in person, and therefore he's not going to be here with his webcam or revealing any of his identity parts. But he's an individual that has crafted so much of my persona and been around for so much of the content that was being created that I'm absolutely ecstatic to have a conversation with him for the first time, and I look forward to sharing that with the rest of you. So let's crack into it, and until next time, take care, and safe flying.
Okay, so what was your question?
You want me to call you Victor or Quetz? What do you prefer?
You can call me Quetz for the sake of the stream.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad that you remember my real name.
I'm not that that bad with memory yet, but it is it can be a problem sometimes keeping track of all people's names, because I've been around so many content creators, so many moderators, came through my stream and my content that at some point it just became impossible. I think there was a massive Discord list of all the names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Filipich made it.
Possibly, yeah. I have to speak to him, too. It's like a whole list of you guys I want to catch up with. Before we got brutally annihilated by Discord because our audio didn't work, we were chatting about, I don't know anymore actually.
Who was the moderator before me?
Oh yeah, the first moderators, how it all started.
Yeah. So I recall Subwoofer was there.
Subwoofer was actually an interesting because I don't know if well, obviously you remember. Wasn't he a moderator since the very beginning, and then he disappeared after some time, and then there was this Reddit drama going on, and he was posting there. I think he was posting negative content about me, and then I'm not sure if I reached out to him or if he just changed his mind, but I think he came back to the stream again. Or is my memory hazy?
Like I don't recall this much, especially those later times with Subwoofer. I remember that Reddit drama, but that's all. And there was a Zezel.
Zezel,
I remember him.
Yeah, I think he was Israeli, just from the top of my head.
No, he was no.
Netherlands.
Maybe Saudi Arabia.
I remember Doge. Doge was
he was after me.
That was after you.
Yeah.
How do you remember the mods that were before you? I mean, that is.
Lorelix, of course.
Lorelix he's a one special person. He's definitely coming up here. I want to have a talk with him. Yeah, you have a superb memory for. Actually, you're 23 now.
24.
24.
Yeah.
So this was. You said 2014, which means. What? Wait, that's 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. That's insane. So you were 15 back then?
When I started watching you, yes. But when I became your moderator, I was 16 already.
Was there ever a moment when you were like, oh my god, this ego boy guy, he's taking it too far? Or were you, because from all the mods, like, I genuinely felt like you were the one who was always supportive. Like, I don't remember much negativity coming from you. Rather, if it was very nicely packaged criticism. And even that was, like, you were always such a polite person.
I think that in general, I was really supportive and was thinking outside the box, even for my age, even though I was not really mature back then. Um, but we, I was basically working for you for free. Yeah, and it was kind of a replacement for friends that I was missing in real life. Yeah, I was worth something
Mhm.
as a moderator, and uh, I built my way up to the on the moderator ladder. I was on the top.
Yeah, you were at the very top. I
Yeah,
mean, no other person springs to mind as like number one.
and it was purely because of my own invention and my own action.
I mean,
Um,
you had a presence that was very calm. You know, I was talking to Remy in the last podcast, and he mentioned how, you know, when JJ came into the chat, there was this livelihood that was brought. You know, when you'd have Spitfly, you knew there was going to be clips that were going to be put into a montage. But
Spitfire was also a mod before me. I actually remember how you made him a mod.
how do you
Yeah,
recall that?
because it was quite important for me back then. Because I remember this specifically about Spitfire because I was kind of dreaming deep down that I wanted to be a mod too, but as I'm realist or pessimist maybe, I was thinking that it would be very unlikely that I I could become a moderator of you, um, but it turned out to be completely different.
Well, if you recall how Spitfly became a mod and all the other ones, I guess my next question is, how did you become a mod? Because I sure don't
I
remember.
remember it too.
You know, I don't remember, and I modded you. So
Yeah, so I can tell about it too. It was it was 14th of February
bro,
2016.
how do
Yeah,
you remember the date?
because those were Valentines.
Ah,
Yeah, I think. And I was playing War Thunder, and I reached out to you in DMs that we could play together. I think uh, I was flying uh, Focke-Wulf 190D9, and you took G14. Um, and we played a match, and later it landed on one of Doom times, but only a part of it, not whole, because it was quite boring for most of that part. But after that match, you wrote to me and said that I'm quite active and on your streams, and I seem very mature, and you asked me if I wanted to be your mod, and I remember that I wasn't really sure what to make of it because I kind of wanted, but never really expected that it would happen.
yeah.
So obviously I whined about my English that it's really bad and all that shit, and uh, but in the end I agreed. I got invited to that Skype group. Um, I have some screenshots from that time just to remember what happened. And I think that Lorelix was talking about something when you added me. So that was basically how I became a mod. Later, I got that sword emoticon on Twitch.
Hmm.
Like, or maybe it was even before the stream. You just made me a mod prior to that.
Yeah.
So
The,
that's the story.
you know what's funny is when I think about it is the experience of becoming a moderator. in a person's channel, I never really experienced outside. Obviously, if I watch Donnie's stream or some other content creator, then you were
Yeah, but it's different because
yeah,
well,
yeah. Because I think when you like the moderators in my chat that were other content creators weren't really moderators.
yeah,
Right? Only Spitfly, I think, was one of those that was actually an active mod because you guys were a
he
community.
became later the content creator.
Hmm. Yeah, he started after me, I
And
think.
I remember that he asked you on stream how to become how to become a content creator, or maybe it was Doom time. Like my memory is not that great. It's good, but not that great.
I mean, the fact you remember, something from a video that has since been deleted for, I want to say, 6+ years, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Would you? I mean, obviously, both of us, I think, miss the old Skype group. We miss the old, the experience of it. But are you still in touch with most of the guys, or have you gone more of a lone wolf type distance? Because obviously, you've moved away from the game.
Like I am still on your Discord server, and whoever is there and types something, I'm probably the first one to respond to it, especially if it's moderator. But people are no longer active there.
I mean, I'm no longer active, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's pretty much a dead Discord.
It has been for a long time, yeah. Perhaps he'll make a comeback, but at the moment there's just no capacity or
I don't feel like comeback is needed.
no,
No.
like
Like everyone moved on, we grew up. Like it's the past.
I think it's part of the beauty actually. Like weird as it is, knowing that if I turned on the stream today, 20, 30, maybe 50 people will show up.
Like it's the same with War Thunder.
Mm.
I no longer crave for it like it was before. Actually, after I quit it, it was I was really angry at it and hated War Thunder. So I wasn't missing the one that was currently. So it was back in 2017. Um, and the fact that you bought me The Witcher also saved me. Yeah, because I had something to play, and I think that month later I got myself a bank account because I was legal age in Poland. So I could finally do online purchases on my own. And since then, I've never touched any free-to-play game, and I never will.
I think you were part of the motivation for me to actually quit.
Yeah, there is a clip of that when you say it.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, part of me envied you. When you're really addicted to something and you look at somebody else who's were able to escape it, and because I saw, obviously, you were never I'd never call you an emotional person. Somebody who'd rage a lot or get angry, but even I could notice the change. Like when you came into the stream, you were just calm. You had this, zero fucks given type of attitude, and you were so content with having gone over the game that when I was playing it and I was getting frustrated, and I just noticed your presence in chat, I felt this motherfucker has moral high ground over me. Like I felt you were above me because you were able to just set it aside, and just not touch it again. It was like I was an alcoholic, and you used to be an alcoholic, and you just got over it, and I was still there chugging alcohol, and it felt, it just felt wrong, and I felt envious, and I don't want to say that if you weren't there, I wouldn't have quit, but definitely I think that played a massive, massive role.
Yeah, like I was frustrated over how Gaijin made uh, how they were developing War Thunder. Like the fact that there were some maps where uh, without doing anything, one side would win always.
Mm.
Like I think that Saipan was one of those maps where American units were pushing, capturing bases. Another thing was, I think, um, just players' toxicity.
Mm.
Um, Kill stealers. And the fact that pretty much every single match I had to carry the team. I was certainly above average. Maybe I was even quite decent, but uh, it wasn't really fun to do everything on your own. You can't rely on your teammates.
Yeah, it gets
And
tired after a while. Yeah.
and I think that War Thunder started corrupting after like addition of TU4.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, that was really unpleasant change. And it was too much, and I did quit in 2017, so it's
Was it a September?
October.
October. Yeah. I know it was autumn. I remember that much.
Like the day you bought me The Witcher was the day I permanently quit War Thunder.
It's amazing, yeah, how massively you got pulled into it. But I think it makes sense, right? The books, they're originally written
Yeah,
in
but
Polish.
you were the one that got me into it.
I mean, I
Uh,
got you into Witcher. You got me out of War Thunder. You know, partially. I think that.
because you started streaming Witcher like in the summer
Hmm.
2000 and no 2017, and I think that's or it was late spring. It was a May or something.
Hmm.
We should check Twitch clips because there are some.
There's some funny
uh,
ones, yeah.
Sorry, I have to drink some water because I'm not used to talk this much.
Yeah, I completely understand. Completely understand. It's a process. In fact, that reminds me of how underrated streaming is, because I think so many people they forget about the fact that you're sitting there for sometimes 4 or 5 hours and you're talking the entire time because you're having a monologue, you're reading chat, you're engaging with viewers, and at no point is there really an opportunity for you to just take a break. And I even noticed that sometimes for a prolonged period of time I speak, like if I didn't have a stream for a long time and then had a long stream, you actually risk getting really sick. Your throat would just sort of give up because there's so much strain going on it, which I think most people are not used to it, and we don't pay enough respect sometimes to people who use their voice in professional methods.
Yeah, but I think that if you talk more, then you also have higher resistance
Hmm.
or whatever. I have no. My English is too bad to describe
No,
it.
your English
Yeah.
is completely fine, dude. That's I always say this to people: is you have to start off from a perspective of my English is good, but I will improve, rather than my English is bad, I'm
Yeah.
shit. Because then, you're putting yourself in it. Think of it in both in the sense. You were a good player not because you said when you were bad, you said I'm shit, I'm never gonna get better. I think all people who are good, whatever they do, they had the capacity of understanding they weren't as good as they could be, but they would never accept the idea that they were shit. And I try to tell this to everybody I meet about, regardless of what the topic is, because I think the mental point of origin where you begin will correlate and dictate, how far you can progress.
Yeah.
Because
Speaking of War Thunder and um, in my English and being shit. uh, I remember my drama with Wuna, Faifan, and clan members.
Oh, this actually is
Yeah,
something that I think we should give some context to, especially
yeah,
to perhaps viewers that haven't played War Thunder or don't know about this. Um, Wuna, Clan, Cat, these were
yeah,
essentially clans that were members in a group that would play together that were extremely good at top tiers. So they would go into these jet matches, 2, 3, 4 players, and they would just seal club. They would just render the enemy team completely useless. If you logged into the game and you looked at the leaderboard and you were like, oh no, and the enemy team has, 4 of the guys from this clan, or it could be 8 of them, you just knew you lost. Didn't matter
yeah.
who was on your team, didn't matter how good you were as a player, you were going to lose because there was no way you could go 1 versus
And
4.
if you were with them in the same team, it was really unlikely that you'd get any kills.
Yes, yeah, you'd have to rush with them, you'd have to play
Yeah,
extremely aggressive, head-ons. Miss a shot, you miss the kill, game's over like within 7 minutes.
yeah. But the thing is that they were looking at that KD ratio, and
Yes.
as I was looking at it, it didn't seem way too good indicator of how skilled player is.
Hmm.
So I invented KB,
Yeah.
which was which is basically efficiency per battle,
Hmm.
uh, and they didn't like it.
No, no, they absolutely did
uh,
not.
so at one point, I think that's on the War Thunder Life website.
Hmm.
I posted something like explanation why KD is bad and and so on, and they started commenting on it. uh, and after that, I think there was one battle when I was against them.
Hmm.
Um, obviously, it ended like it should with clan members. But we were discussing in chat.
Mm.
They were laughing at me, and it's escalated to calling names each other.
Usually does, yeah, usually
Yeah,
does.
um, I think I called them brain dead or something like that. Yeah, or that they have brain damage or whatever. And after that, VDC came to you.
Hmm.
It was back when we were still in Skype, uh, and you wanted me to join the Skype call,
Hmm.
and I was that it was urgent and we had to discuss something. And I was in the middle of the Hunter gameplay, so I was flying I think on Spain in my fresh Hunter because it was shortly after it was released. And you called you called me that I have to join, and I was like stressing out
Man,
because
I was such a dad back then, you know.
and I was actually you told me what's going on, um, uh, and that I should join the conversation, uh, and and I think that I told you that I don't have a mic.
Hmm.
I had one,
Mm.
but I was so scared to talk in English that I preferred to lie that I don't have a mic. So
I had a hunch it was something like that, yeah.
yeah, and uh, in the end, I joined. I somehow managed to join it, obviously with mic unplugged, because that was older headset, and it had 2 plugs, one for headphones, other for uh, other for mic. So Yeah, so you could pretend that you don't have one, and turning it on Skype and trying something, and you would hear maybe
Some
if you're
static, probably.
lucky,
Yeah.
some noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had some conversation. I was typing in chat. It was so stressful that I was typing in wrong chat, so Willis didn't see it. I think I had to apologize, and since then we weren't liking each other.
I probably took Villis's side just because of the context of, he was also a content creator, I think, at the time. He was quite influential in the community. He was a very good player. And I knew that you had a little bit of that passive aggressiveness where you sort of love rubbing it in people's faces sometimes.
Yeah, but I think at least from today's perspective that it was really childish of
Mhm.
from my on my part.
I mean, but ideally, we were all childish back then.
Yeah,
So much of the drama was just, boys being boys. But I think it's the concept that you brought up, which was kills per battles. Again, for context, KD being kills per death is this metric that a lot of players use in a lot of different games. How many kills you can get in a game before you eventually die. And the higher the number is, the better the player is. That's the hypothetical. But the problem with War Thunder is it's a little bit different than that because it's a stat that you can farm. You could go after all the easy players and you can pretty reliably get, let's say, 4 kills per match. And then a lot of these players, what they would do, they would deliberately fly back to the airfield and land. And even if the game was looking like they're going to lose, they want to preserve that death. So they would get maybe 1 kill and then leave the match without dying. So they have 0 deaths. Whereas a player like you or me, which we were more efficiency based, I just want to play the game. I had no issues going head on. I die, they die. I get a kill, they get a kill. I just leave the match. Means more experience, means the match goes by faster, more enjoyable for the stream, more enjoyable for the viewer on YouTube. And the idea that you brought up was kills per battle. So the idea being, cool, you can go into a match, you can get all your kills, but can you do it reliably? Or are you getting 1 kill per match and then leaving it without dying? Or are you getting 4 kills per match
yeah,
and
and
being...
later I think that we improved it a bit,
Mhm.
so we included mortality.
I don't know about that, but I know I made a video called kills per battle times kills per death.
Yeah,
I took the two metrics and I said, look, they're both kind of important, but you have to look at them one through the lens of the other, and I think that sort of would bring some logic because this was during a time where there was a push from myself, mostly, to try to get a rating system into the game, a rating system that would actually make sense where through quick and easy math, nothing complicated, you could glance at a player's profile and just say, okay, this guy's good, this guy's bad, whatever. But we never got anywhere with Gaijin. The
yeah.
rating system they did provide for certain things was just complex and weird and clunky. Because the idea of, KB times KD is just, it's the simplest equation you can do. You can do it for individual vehicles, you can do it for individual game modes.
But in the end, it's not perfect either. It has some flaws.
Mm.
Like I think that um, the case when you have 0 deaths
Hmm.
was fucking up this equation, and I think maybe some people pointed it out.
I mean, realistically, I don't think there's a single rating system that's perfect. There's always going to be
Like using only one is not good. You need to have
several
few of them.
metrics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the more metrics you have, the more you're complicating it, and then someone has to put the algorithm in there and make a rating system, make it work, and maybe with some other game developers, we knew how Gaijin did stuff, and at that
Gaijin
point,
doesn't care about it. They care about other things.
yeah, unfortunately, yeah, very much.
I see right now that they are pushing the for later vehicles and aircraft So I think that we can expect F22 in 2025.
Yeah, maybe even sooner than that, for sure. I mean, ultimately, my question is just what are they going to do afterwards? Because they're going to eventually run out of stuff to add at the higher end of the game unless they're going to go into imaginary things
Well,
that don't exist.
I think they are right now they are opening new tiers,
Hmm.
and they have very few aircraft in it. So later they might just add some more stuff to those tiers. Obviously more premiums.
So do you still keep track of the game? Do you like?
Yes, sometimes when I see on my YouTube feed maybe some interesting video,
Mm,
I like to see how this game develops, even
hmm.
though I don't play it anymore, and I have no intention to.
So it's a little bit like stocking an old X. You just want to see how far they're going to ruin their
I've
life.
never had any ex, so like I can't tell.
Is it? Have you found gaming? I mean, looking back at it now, obviously you're now entering the age where, you know, like it or not, you're going to start dating because you're a
Yeah,
guy, and we're driven by things. But looking back now at gaming, do you feel like the War Thunder, obviously taking into account the whole moderator experience, being part of the stream, being part of a community, um, how do you look back at it? Is it like a very fond memory? Do you have regrets about it? Would you have done certain
like
things differently?
it feels at the moment so distant, like uh, as if it was different universe,
Mm-hmm.
different reality. Obviously, it had influence on me, and I think that if I didn't get into War Thunder, there were many options. Maybe I would get into something else. Maybe I would study more and be better. Maybe I would work on myself more and would achieve something much earlier. But uh, generally, I think that if you can't change the past, then there is no reason to dwell about it.
Mm-hmm. That's very smart. Yeah. So, give me a bit of an update. Last I spoke to, or at least last I remember, you you were studying, if I recall correctly, plane engineering,
No,
something.
that was my first
Mm-hmm.
faculty. I think that's the name in English for it. And I failed. I had two attempts. Then was year of break,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really depressing for me. Like after two times failing the same university, the same faculty on in that university, I basically thought that I'm really useless and can't finish anything important. Um, and I think that my family was helping me back then to, and what they were encouraging me to find something else. I was trying to apply to work, but those were pandemic times, so I
Mm-hmm.
had no luck finding one, and it also made my mood worse. And I think that in 2021, uh, I was really I knew that I had to do something with my life, but I didn't really know what. I knew that I had to pick another university because after high school you basically have uh, no opportunity to find a good job. So I decided to randomly pick a university.
I know how that goes. Yeah.
I waited. There was mm, is it application time or
Hmm.
what's it, how it's called in English? Recruitation? I don't know.
Yeah, when they open up the applications, basically.
Yeah, so there was a time after finals because younger kids when they finished high school, I think there is like 3 months period when they check those exams,
Hmm.
and after that, uh, in July uh, there are results, and I think that the application process starts also in July, shortly after they receive uh, the results of their exams, um, and and I wasn't sure what to pick,
Hmm.
so I waited that time and waited for additional application that would open somewhere in September. So so faculties were filtered out. Those most popular would be taken, and I would have a smaller choice, so it would be easier to pick something. Yeah, and uh, I chose furniture making
Hmm.
as a my faculty, and now I'm studying it. And I survived 2 years. Soon we start third year. So
And you enjoy it?
maybe it's not really interesting. At least, well, and there are interesting aspects of it,
Hmm.
but uh, it's not like thing that I would have dreamt about to do. Mm, I think that's my current path leads to being a designer.
Hmm.
Mm, but the most important thing is that um, the people, my group is the best one I ever had. Like there is no much
Hmm.
for the people I've met there.
Man, this is the part of university that is so random. I've been to three different, well, two different universities, but three different directions, and every time the group was different. You know, and the last time, like you said, like in your case, it was a very nice group of people. You just feel at home. It actually feels like I'm excited to go to class. I'm excited to hang out with these people, talk to them, hang out with them. Um, and also, I think it's a good direction because you're going to get into the job market, as soon as possible. Start working actually, which I think is the biggest issue with universities. We spent so much time studying and learning theory, and then very little gets actually shown, practiced, done. And I think so many people they leave universities at the age of like 26, 27, 28. They've got their bachelor's, master's, and they've never worked a day in their life. And they get thrown out there into the world and they're just not prepared for it. And and I'm happy that you've chosen a direction which I think should lead you to more practical work. Obviously, I could be mistaken, but I feel like the direction you've chosen is more practically oriented than just theoretical.
Well, if I became a designer, then there is a lot of theoretical work too,
Hmm.
like in the 3D software. But also, I think I would do drafts on paper.
Hmm. Well, but also,
Uh,
think about it in the sense that using a program is a skill set. It's something you can put on the CV. And I didn't think about this before. In fact, in the future, I might very well make some type of course or a program because I've read a lot of people's CVs and they're garbage. And they're garbage because they're written boring. They're written about parts of their lives that the employer doesn't care about. Um, and there's so much more that you can put on your CV, you know, when you do something, every time you create an action, when you host something, when you, it might sound like a joke, but in reality, what you did as a moderator, for me, was essentially running a job. So the question posed is, how can you put that on a CV? Because you can, right? Is it something that your employer can go through and check? Not really. I mean, they can message me and I'll confirm it. But the reality is that it is a skill set. What you did was you managed a group of people. You kept, a certain other group of people in check, right? The chat. You had to control them. You had to organize stuff. You're basically, a collaborator, making sure that a system, which was quite complex, 500 plus people at some points, and you took charge of that. I think that is something that is an experience that most people will never get.
Yeah.
No, honestly, it might sound like a kick, but I honestly look at it that way. Like when you're going to go through the process of writing a CV, put everything in there. Everything that's quirky, unique, you put it in there, and I think that makes you stand out. Because I remember when I was, I don't recall what job it was when I was searching for it, but I'd sent my CV over, and the guy said, "I've never seen a CV like that before," and it was on one page. I made sure it was on one A4 page, written in Word, no picture, no useless information, just the core. And he was just like, "Wow, I've never seen a CV like that." And I know that gave me an edge over everybody else that was signing up, because it's a lot like, I don't like equating it to dating, but it's, there's a bunch of people sending their resume, their letters, their CVs, and only one person usually going through them. So the question is, how can I make my CV stand out? How can you be the guy they're going to look at and just go, "Yep, this is the guy we want. I want this guy to come in. I want to have a phone call with him. I want to chat with him. I want to get to know him better. I want to pay this man to work for me." I think it takes some of that. The same way that you became a moderator for me, essentially. It's you've shown interest, you've shown certain skill sets, and you were the right person for the job.
Yeah, possibly.
No, I mean, there's a reason why you were number one. Like what I'm trying to say is that it would be a waste for you to not take massive pride of what you did, because you single-handedly, obviously, you were number one moderator in my chat. Now that's undisputed. I don't think there's a single person who was around there at that time, a viewer or any other moderator, who's going to look at this and say, "Yeah, no, that's not the case. Somebody else was
Like the trust I had from you was insane.
Absolutely. Because I knew that I could rely on you, because there's just something,
I remember when we were doing squadrons in War Thunder,
Mm.
and you made a forehead. Yeah, it was the squadron's name.
Yeah, that was a good size. It was forehead and four pleb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forplep was made by Storm, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
571, maybe. I don't remember.
Yeah. Some random number. I think it was a 4 in there. I don't know. 471 maybe.
And so we had those two squadrons, and at one point you wanted to have forehead only to yourself.
Yeah.
So I brought the idea of creating another one, but I was underage and couldn't buy anything on the internet, and you bought me those golden eagles.
Oh man.
Yeah, and in the moment you were doing that, I was thinking to myself that if I wanted, I could buy something completely different by those eagles. Yeah, but I created a squadron.
No, I trusted you. And I think there's something
I
beautiful
knew that you
about.
trusted me.
There's something beautiful about trust. I've just been watching on Netflix now. I don't know why it's on Netflix. It's actually an HBO series, but Band of Brothers, which has really high ratings. And it's incredible to see that obviously it's World War II, it's D-Day, Normandy, all the things that are happening. Shows quite a few scenarios of the soldiers, which is obviously quite fucked up and war related. But there's a trust that those guys have, and I think that there's a lot of what I learned about men and camaraderie and friendship. I think War Thunder played a big role, not just as a game, but the fact that it's a game based around World War II. So inherently, we were like, soldiers. I mean,
Was based.
yeah, I mean,
No, it's not. Not anymore. At least
no, not anymore.
nobody
But
cares about it anymore.
no, but if you think about it, there was that time where there was the Doom Army, which, that's something so bizarre where you have a group of people that are just so tied to a common goal, they would do whatever you tell them. I was basically the, Stabführer for these kids. They're just going to go around. Like, if I told them to go into a certain person's chat and say certain things, they would do it. It's such a bizarre thing.
Yeah, very childish.
We were kids back then, to be completely
Yeah.
honest. We were, 15,
I
16.
think that majority of your viewer base were younger than you.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed that there is that effect that if you hang out with younger kids, then you become more like them, and they become more like you. So they get up, uh, they act older,
Mm-hmm.
and you act younger,
Yeah.
and as a result, there are some strange things happening.
Yeah, but that is the effect, right? You're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most, and so if you hang out with kids, you're going to eventually, get into that mentality, and that's why it is important. I think in my case, I was lucky that the moderators I chose, at least like the top 10, or there were a lot of you, were all really good people, and so I think that the influence was very positive, and I chose
Yeah,
different
we had some
characters.
nice conversation.
Yeah,
Had some nice
yeah.
conversations on Discord and some foolish ones too.
No, for sure. I mean, because there were some characters in there. Arado, Bacon. These guys were, they were
Yeah, Arado
memers.
was before me.
Yeah, Arado's a special guy.
Yeah.
I'm for sure gonna meet him one day. I want to go for. He rides motorbikes now. I follow him on Instagram. I try to stay somewhat in touch. It's nice to see because you as a community manager, whatever I would call myself, as a I guess the guy on top, you get to choose. You get to cherry pick all these people, and you choose different individuals, you choose different, characters, and you sort of make this melting pot of just beautiful conversation to happen. Like, I've got so many good memories, so much positivity just surrounding the idea that
Yeah, it was so long ago.
it was, yeah. But very, very, very positive memories. There's a question I usually ask people when I talk to them, especially if they played War Thunder. It's like, what's your favorite vehicle? Because if you close your eyes right now and you imagine the War Thunder hangar music starts blasting back in 2016, and you're logging in for the first time, and you're like, oh, there's this this one
I
plane.
started War Thunder in 2013,
Same as me, basically, yeah.
but it was end of September.
So about 6 months after.
Yeah, I had opportunity to start much earlier. I think because I started in 1.39 maybe, or 37, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was that patch with Red Yak 3,
Mm-hmm.
and I think maybe Yak 17 was in it too. But I had opportunity to join much earlier, but there was some issue on a parent's laptop, and I wasn't able to install it. And after those few months, uh, the issue was gone, and I installed. I checked how it is because uh, there are different reasons why people start playing games. Like I know that JJ showed War Thunder to you, and
Hmm.
it clicked. But for my case, I was already in. I was already aviation enthusiast and was playing old Artustromowik since 2009. So I was really little kid, but back then. um, I think that in 2012 I got Artustromowik 1946, and uh, I played I played it like 2 years, and after that I moved to War Thunder. So the reason why I started it was because I was interested in aviation, and it was just another quote unquote simulator,
Mm.
and that had multiple planes that were really looking great back then because War Thunder was top quality when it comes to graphics.
Yeah, it was something else.
Now it looks trash, but
Wow. It always looks back in hindsight, like the very early days were just something completely different. The sound, the audio engineering, the music choice, the graphics itself, it was it was a sight to behold for sure. It was a
but
first game of its kind.
as I quit War Thunder, I moved to DCS, and
Hmm.
I'm still flying in there. And there is also Modern Isle 2. It's great battles series,
Hmm.
but I played much less than DCS.
Was there a desire for you to be a pilot?
Yeah,
Mm.
a really failed one. Like uh, at least I wanted to be a military
Hmm.
pilot, so I have no chance to be one. I've never had, but I was fooling myself that I will.
Why is it why is it not possible?
I have poor eyesight,
Ah, of course.
and I'm not really a strong person. I'm skinny.
Well, that can be changed, but yeah, eyesight is something
It
that would.
can, but it requires a lot of work.
Well, everything
And
requires work, so.
yeah, I barely started.
But always think of it like this. Like the first day you started playing War Thunder, you were a nobody, and the first day you start working out, you are a nobody. And I always say to people, as long as you have a floor to stand on, you have a floor to do push-ups on, and do one today and go to bed and feel happy, and do one more than the day before and go to bed happy, and then if you can't do one more, then just do the same you did the day before and keep doing that, and then add one, and eventually what happens is you can suddenly do 5 push-ups, and then you can do 10, and then you can do 20, and then at some point you're going to look back and you're going to think, how was I ever so weak that I couldn't do a single push-up? And you'll laugh at it, and it'll
Well,
just it'll be a faint memory.
the story with push-ups I have is that after I finished high school, so it was after finals,
Hmm.
and um, but back then there was that one girl that I wanted to get to know her, and I remember that I was writing about that with you. Mm, and she was basically a motivation to start working on
Hmm.
myself. So I started to I started doing push-ups at home. I had that program for
Hmm.
uh, for 100 to get to 100 push-ups.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was practicing it. I was eating a lot more,
Hmm.
and I think that in the span of maybe 3 months, uh, I increased my weight by 8 kilos
Yeah.
because I was much skinnier than I am now. I was 1 meter 81, and I had barely 50 kilos of uh, body mass.
Mm.
So after that training of doing push-ups and eating a lot more than I used to, I got to 58, and it was noticeable, especially on the face. Like I have my ID with
Mm-hmm.
from times before that, so you can clearly see how I looked. But it was I was much skinnier. But after that, I started university, and it was really difficult there, and I couldn't. I just didn't have time, and I was absolutely tired after it,
Mm-hmm.
and it basically made uh, those trainings goes to waste in majority. And I started trainings this summer. Um, I think, or maybe even it was spring, like late spring. So I focused on 1 kilometer running
Mm-hmm.
and doing pull-ups. Like, I had uh, that 1 kilometer route, which was on its final. There was that I have no idea how to call it, but
The bars you can pull yourself.
yeah, the playground for adults.
The playground for adults.
Yeah, yeah, and I was practicing pull-ups. I was doing overhand ones because my triceps are much weaker than biceps.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with ability to do only one, and because of that, I was making few series of just one
Mm-hmm.
pull-up. And right now I'm at the point where I can do 5 of them.
Dope. Dope.
Yes, so the progress is there. I should probably eat a lot more,
Yeah.
but
The hardest part is actually eating
I
and
should probably count calories I consume because it matters. I don't do that right now.
I recommend you do one day. All it takes is, I think, one day of counting calories, because a lot of us might think we're eating a lot, but we're actually not. So just take one day. Tomorrow, if you've got time, just write down everything you've eaten. At the end of the day, go through the calories, figure out
There
how
is
much.
also that problem that I am really slow eater.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know how I became one because much earlier I didn't have those problems, but
Do
now
you like? Do you watch videos when you're eating, or?
yeah, usually I am in front of PC and
Because I think that might be the problem we're dealing with. There was this wonderful video from a kid. I think he's Joe Fraser, and he made this video essentially saying that when you're trying to bulk, when you're trying to eat a lot of food, what you should do is cut out all the distractions, set a timer for 5 minutes, and put music on. He legit was like, I haven't tried this yet, but to put music on and essentially go, like, now I'm eating, and the only thing I'm going to do is eat. Because I think a lot of us, what we do is and it causes two things, right? Because if you're watching content when you're eating, your brain might not fully send the signals to your stomach, the rest of your body, to actually say, hey, this guy's now consuming food. Let's prep for digestion. Because for some people who have bad metabolism, they're going to get fat, because they're actually consuming more food than they realistically need because they're being distracted. And for guys like you and me, because we're on the skinny side, we're actually not eating enough. And again, we're being distracted by the content we're watching.
well, when I'm not distracted by anything, I eat slow too. Also depends what. When I I am really taste sensitive, I'd
Hmm.
say. So if I don't like things, then I eat them slower.
But I mean, wouldn't it make sense that if you don't like the taste of something, you eat it fast to get it done with?
Well, I'm so sensitive that it's hard to swallow when something is not tasty enough.
Well, okay, what's something that you can't eat? Because
Like it depends. Sometimes it's just a fatigue, like eating the same thing over and over again.
I think part of that can be overcome, which, you know, the classic diet of, plain broccoli, white rice, and chicken titties, that stuff gets repetitive very quickly. But I think the point of bulking, at least for the first, I want to say, couple of months that you do it, to get the baseline weight in, you actually have to force yourself to eat. And I think that's the difficult part because, yeah, you're not going to be enjoying it that much. It's not the same way when you're working out. You're not. It's until you get the pump going, until your blood really starts flowing, until you get warmed up, until you get into the flow. If you're listening to music, until that thing goes in, it's a pain. If I gave you a brand new video game to play right now, you would suck at it and you would hate the game and you'd hate yourself and you'd hate me. And again, after a couple of weeks, you'd be
I
like,
wouldn't say so.
no?
No,
You think you get right into it? Like, just enjoy it? Or
I think I wouldn't even touch it.
okay, well, let's say it's not a video game. Let's say it's any activity, right? If I come to Poland right now and I bring a road
Which
bike
is
with
very
me,
unlikely.
it's not that unlikely. But if we both pick up a
Right
bike,
now.
and we go cycling, well, I'll be there in a couple of hours. Um, Realistically, I could drive there. It is drivable distance. So
Like 1,000 kilometers or
yeah,
so. Yeah.
I've driven to Munich this year and Vienna, so it's put the two together and you're basically in Poland. You know, I mean, if Hitler could do it, no, but really, I mean, it is tough. I think for most of us skinny guys, but it absolutely can be done. Because I remember December last year, I did 12 kilos in 21 days. And this year I'm planning to do it on an even bigger scale because I currently weigh 85 kilos at 1 meter 90, and I want to go into triple digits. I'm just curious. I want to figure out what I would look like at triple
But
digits.
muscle mass or fat?
I prefer muscle mass at the moment. Yeah, I don't mind the fat because again, with cycling, I know I'm going to burn that. So I do actually currently have quite a little bit of fat, which I absolutely don't mind because I know what's underneath. It's sort of the process of bulking is also kind of weird because I feel the skinny guys were in this mindset of I'm a bit of a fat shamer. I'm not a like bigger women don't attract me, and therefore I sort of have a bit of repulsion towards fat. And there comes this idea I don't want to be fat myself, right? And so it almost feels wrong to bulk because then it's like, oh no, I've got all this fat on my body, and then you almost have this weird illogical fear that you're never going to be able to lose this fat, which is completely illogical and insensible because you and I both know, go for a couple of runs, go for some cycling, do some CrossFit exercises, and it'll be gone.
Some.
Well, I don't think it takes that much, realistically speaking, but the issue with
Depends how
humans,
much you have it.
I think that depends how long you're willing to do it, right? Because if we both start working out today, the first day is the worst. First week is hellish. I think it probably takes 2-3 weeks, perhaps even a full month to get into the train of things because when you did your first pull up, right? You did your first run, 1 kilometer, you do your first pull up, you barely get yourself over to the bar, with your chin, and you come home and now your legs hurt, your arms are sore, everything you feel tired, you feel annoyed, you're like, why did I even do
That's the
this?
point.
Yeah, what's the point? And then you do it the next day, and you're like, I think that's the yeah, I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan.
Also,
Joe Rogan
re-
called this thing. He said, conquer the inner bitch. I think that's the inner bitch speaking. You know, I think it's when you're tired, when you don't want to do no more. It's being able to overcome that and say, nah, I'm going to go for
Yeah,
another run today.
I know that
Yeah.
breaks are really important, so
Hmm.
muscles can repair themselves and grow. So,
Absolutely.
so it's not that you should train every single day. Make breaks
Well,
for regeneration.
I think you can train every day. But again, the difference is this, it's the soreness. Obviously, we all regenerate differently. I know for cycling specifically, I can regenerate quite efficiently. I know some people who can't. So I had this recent event I did with Remy, right? We both did some cycling. I was regenerating way more than he was. He was more fatigued. So he took a rest day in between, I think once or twice. Whereas I would go out there every single day. That's one aspect. The other is that if you're just starting working out, if you're one of the listeners and you're thinking, okay, let me get into fitness, I'll do some push-ups, I'll do some pull-ups, do some curls, weight exercises, whatever. What we tend to do is the first couple of days we go too hard, right? Because you want to wake up the next morning and you want to see results, and you're not going to. So I still have days where, happened recently actually, I wanted to do a workout and I said, I'm going to do like an hour and a half I wanted to do. I ended up doing 15 minutes. I was tired. I didn't feel like it. It was one of those days. It just sort of fell off. I stopped. You know, I listened to the body and I was like, okay, you know what? Let's not push it. 15 minutes is better than 0 minutes. You know, there's no need to go into the Rambo mode and destroy yourself. For some people it might work, but 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes tomorrow, as long as you're doing something. Obviously, don't get into the habit of not doing the long stuff that you said you're going to do, but completely fine if you settle for a little bit less. Would you agree?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
Maybe.
you know, you do a run, you do one pull-up, you do a run the next day, you do one pull-up. Hell, you might do your run and halfway through you're like, nah, not today. I'm going to walk the rest of the way. You know, you still did more than if you didn't go for the run. It shouldn't feel like a failure, you know. Maybe you won't treat yourself to a, you know, chocolate sundae from McDonald's afterwards, but I think the reward is going out there and doing the hard work.
I'd say that walking really won't do much more for me. I'm already really good walker.
No, but
Yeah,
the essence is getting out there. You know, exercise can often be used for other methods. For me, cycling for me was never about working out. It was never about being muscular or being skinny fit or having, you know, fat quads. For me, it was an escape from shit in my life. And working out for you when you were trying to, you know, to do your push-ups was because of a woman. And I think that's the beauty of it. Is I think
I think that having motivation like that is good, but uh, it's more important to have the motivation without a woman to work on yourself.
realistically speaking, I think there's always going to be a woman. Like no matter how
Yeah,
you
but
twist it.
but I should train despite not having one right now,
Hmm.
and and
Well,
that's what I've been doing.
I think there's two ways you can look at it. You know, one is that you can work out in order to numb the pain because someone hurt you, or you're working out because you want to qualify yourself and be a better match for someone who's going to come along in the future.
Or just want to be stronger.
Obviously, yeah. Obviously, that could be the case too. But I'm a person who, and maybe this actually is ego boy related. Maybe this is an internal ego thing. But I love affirmation from things. You know, if it comes to going on dates or if it comes to talking to friends or whatever aspect of life it might be, I will always look for affirmations. So what that means is I'll try to look for some kind of source of feedback. Like the same way when I was streaming, I would often come to you, you probably remember this, with certain questions. Like, what do you think about this thumbnail? What do you think about this editing style? What do you think about this idea about doing this on the stream? You know, and then you or the other moderators or everybody maybe chat would sort of give certain feedback back. And with that, you're able to sort of figure out, am I on the right track? Have I completely lost my marbles? You know, is it something really cool? I think it's similar with, in this case, working out, where you're like, is this action which I'm doing in my life, is it taking me in the correct direction? And I believe wholeheartedly that the universe will give you answers. Like you will notice, like, is
Biased
this...
ones.
Sorry?
Biased ones answers.
Biased? You think that you guys
Yeah.
gave me biased answers?
Yeah,
But what does that mean, though?
because we can't be objective.
I think to a certain degree you are, because you're not, you're not thinking with my head, I'd say. Like, obviously you're biased because you're part of
I'm
the stream.
subjective. My opinion is very subjective. It can't be objective.
Well, I'd say that your opinion on certain topics can be objective, right? Because
It can't.
So, okay, wait, so your opinion is that... Well, your opinion of an opinion... So, if I ask you your opinion of, let's say, a woman, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's extremely subjective, right?
Yeah.
Whether you fancy her or not, I might really like her. You might say, no, this is completely not my type. But when there are things that you're not 100% involved in, right? If I was to say, look at that couple over there, what is your opinion of them? I think you would be more objective than subjective in that instance, because they don't relate to you. They're not your, relatives. They're not your friends. They're just random people that you're sort of judging.
I think that I still be very objective.
Objective or subjective?
Subjective. I'm so sorry. Subjective.
I mean, obviously you guys being part of the stream, you were subjective, but you're still reflecting some criticism back. As far as I recall, there was always feedback. It wasn't like it was just, this is how I would do it. But I do understand where you're coming from, for sure. In fact, you've sort of combobulated my brain, because the way I think about objectiveness and subjectiveness is like, I was thinking about this the other day, is you have people that are objectively beautiful. Like, I don't know, if I say Brad Pitt or Tom Hardy, like,
I'd say that everything feelings related it has to be subjective, and straight facts are objective.
You're a very mathematical person, it feels. Like, your thought process was always very binary. No, not binary, it's not the right word. No, it's... I don't know what the word for that is, but like calculated. Would you say that sort of describes you?
Yeah, the logic in mathematics.
But you see, to me, that feels like you're more of an objective person than a subjective person. Because
I disagree.
I say that because, would you say that I'm more or less emotional than you?
I honestly don't know you.
That's one aspect. Okay, from what you've seen on the streams, from what you've seen from...
But you're acting on streams.
Well, some of it is act, obviously. It's an alter ego, was. But I would argue that I, at least back then, at least in that character, I was significantly more of an emotional being than you were.
Depends in what aspects.
You are very calculated. You know what? Let's agree to disagree. I think that would be the fairest.
Or disagree to agree.
That's also one way to put it. You know what? To savor your voice for a bit, because before we started, we did chat a little bit on Discord, typing, of course, and I felt like you had some questions. Usually, I have guests and I give them one question, but since this is the first time it's not really the first time we're talking, but it is kind of the first time we're probably having a conversation properly.
Yeah, first time in your memory.
First time in my memory, yeah. That's in my very scuffed memory. Anything that you're interested in, really.
Well, I asked you in chat,
Mm-hmm.
in DMs, what you're doing right now. Like, what's your job?
Yeah. I don't know how much I can disclose because it is slightly NDA, but
Okay.
it's not nothing like that really. I can't go into details, but I can give you a very good overview. Obviously, I worked as a cook for just under 3 years. I went through 3 different positions, and then last year at around this time, actually this exact last week of September, I stopped. I basically quit. I was like, but rather than quit, I didn't get fully employed. Up until that point, I was working as a student. I was still studying at the time. I was finishing my thesis, and most people in our country, when they're students, they'll do a lot of student work. It's a little bit more flexible. You know, if you don't want to come into work tomorrow, you just don't come. There's no obligations. There's no contract. There's no penalties. And I was on the verge of getting employed for the first time, and I was really scared about it, right? Because having done YouTube all my life, never really had a job like as such, and I felt like a contract which you sign with an employer felt very binding. There was this fear that I would lock myself into a position somewhere, and with working as a cook, you're usually working 12-hour days or even longer. Forget about weekends, they don't exist. Forget about vacation, during holidays, that doesn't exist. Christmas, you're working. New Year's Eve, you're working. It's a lot like streaming, except that it's a little bit less enjoyable. You're standing there for long hours, 40-degree heat, hot things splattering, burns, cuts. And at the time, I was dating a woman who was a medical student, and she had a very good future lined up ahead of her. And I pulled this thing out of my head. I just thought, like, is this really the life that she deserves? Like, does this individual deserve to be with a person who is going to be a cook? And I ran this simulation of 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future, and I just said, this is bad for me, this is bad for my partner, this is bad for everything involved, and I just sort of said, I need a reset. So I went out of the relationship. I said, I'm not going to continue work here. I sent an application to, I believe, some company that was looking for a social media manager. I just jumped on the first thing that was there, and I went on to the interview. The interview went by really, really fun, but I could tell from the beginning they were looking for a woman. It was a very woman-specific position because the job itself was about, I think it was something related to babies or little kids, which, I don't think I'm the right person for the job. And then I started cycling out of control because I started having some regrets. I was in a bit of a comfort zone. Obviously, I was familiar with the work I was doing. I was familiar with the people I was working with. The relationship itself was a pretty cozy place, and I still had my thesis to finish. So October last year was a very, very dark period for me. And then in November, I sat down, I finished my thesis. I slowly started to sort of pinch myself out from the shitter. And the very last day of November, I finished my thesis. I send it in. I've graduated, or whatever you want to call it, from the bachelor's degree. And I drive to a primary school reunion. So I'm there with JJ, right? Because I've known him pretty much since we were toddlers. And a bunch of women that I haven't seen in, I want to say 12 years at that point, they come to me and they're like, Tim, you've got such amazing English. Like, why don't you make some kind of course? I'm just standing there. I'm thinking, because I was in the midst of this. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I don't know if I want to go back into a kitchen. I kept going to these. I went to hotels. I went to restaurants. I was on tryouts, like I think, 2 different places, and everywhere I came, I didn't feel at home. I felt like it was too small, it was too hot, it was too crowded, this guy was weird, that guy was weird, the food was weird. And it just felt like I was patching for something. It almost felt like I was just trying to find some place to work for the sake of working, instead of being somewhere on a mission, being somewhere where I can really build myself. And when the women said that, when they were like, you should know, English, and I was like, something blew in my head. I was like, why didn't I think about this before? And December, I started to assemble a bit of a plan. I was like, okay, instead of waiting for January, because this is what we tend to do, we say, I'll start next week, I'll start next month, I'll start next year. I said, let me just start today. So 1st of December rolls around, I start working out, I start eating, I start setting up a plan. I said, look, for the next month, I'm not going to focus on trying to get a job. I had this wonderful opportunity to work in a steakhouse, which they were looking for a pizza guy. And I was going to have a good pay. I was going to be in charge of the entire pizza place. But the pizza we would be doing would be a type of pizza that I wasn't keen on. Just the way the dough was rolled out, very thin. I like the glutinous Neapolitan style pizza. And I told the guy, I was like, dude, thank you so much for the opportunity. Like, you've really touched me, but I absolutely do not see myself here. And he was very understanding. And I took a bit of a break from the job search within the kitchen industry, and rather, I think I went on LinkedIn and I typed in English, right? LinkedIn, you familiar with it?
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, so LinkedIn is basically Facebook for people that look for jobs, right? And I typed in English, and I was like, translators, and they're looking for this, looking for that, and obviously I'm not qualified for any of that, but I know my English is good. I thought, I didn't spend 8+ years creating content to then not include it on my CV, to then not include it in my sort of potential work. And in the background, I was developing this idea for the English course, which is now, finally I've got enough time to start working on it again, get it finished. But I applied for a job as an English translator. And after a while, I get an email back, and the HR girl, she's just like, hey, thanks for applying. Unfortunately, we have rejected the offer, blah, blah, blah. And I was actually really, I don't know why, I was sort of pissed. I guess my ego got hurt a little bit, and I was polite, and I was like, hey, do you happen to have any other open job opportunities? And I didn't expect her to reply, but she was like, yeah, of course, here. And she links me some other stuff, and it was a partner company of the same guy, which instead of working with English translator, in this case it was copywriting, which I knew nothing about. What is copywriting? I didn't know. I had to Google it. And they give me a task, and I solve the task. And I saw that this was a tourism company which was focused around, writing hiking trips and cycling trips and things like that. And I was like, great, this is actually kind of similar to what I do. I'm a cyclist. I love traveling. I love food. Like this sort of, I've got good English. Hey man, let me crack into this. And it was second to last week of December. They call me. We have a Zoom call, and I could tell immediately they were going to take me. Just from the conversation I had with the guy, I knew it was going to be a gold mine. And then before we ended the conversation, he said, are you familiar with AI writing tools? And I was like, I don't know what, I was like, I'm old fashioned. I like typing things by hand, And he was like, yeah, well, ChatGPT. I'm like, whatever. And we finished the call. Obviously, the first thing I do is I go online. I'm like, ChatGPT, what is this thing? And my mind is blown. I'm like, I think that might have been the weeks or days when ChatGPT was actually released for the first time. So I, in a weird case of circumstances, I didn't just get the job, but I got into that job position right when ChatGPT happened, which means that I had all these tools which made my job easier. And so finally getting to the point where I'm answering your question, which is what I do, is I'm a content writer and a copywriter. I make sure that we get websites set up and we have products that we can sell to customers. And I'm mostly in charge of everything to do with cycling, because that's my domain. That's where I'm comfortable with. And then whatever we do sell to customers, I'm then in charge of actually putting together comprehensive itineraries or plans or stuff like that. But there's also tiny things I get to do around the company. Sometimes you have to go pick up some customers. Sometimes you have to go do little errands. And I find that's so much fun because it's not the same work every day. It varies. It's uncertain at times. It can be quite stressful, but there's so much flexibility, there's so much knowledge, there's so much positivity in the actual environment that I'm actually blown away by the fact that, first and foremost, jobs like these exist, that people like these exist, that my boss is an absolute boss, just a good person, that feedback can be taken, that, you have team buildings and workshops, and there's so much that the world offers when you put yourself. There's this, I think it was Alex Amodi, he said, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And I felt like that for me was last year. In winter, following my most depressed period ever of my life, my most confused period ever, my most painful period, everything sort of clicked into place. And it was because I created the opportunity and then positioned myself there in the right spot. And the job I have at the moment, I'm in love with, and I think it's opened up this mindset. It's not so much that I think us people are limited by what we can do or, what experience we have, but by the limit that we've created in our heads. It goes back to that thing we were talking about where if you don't believe it, if you say, my English is shit, you're implying that it's never going to get better. As opposed to saying, could be better, I'll work on it. And I try to approach that every day. And I try to look at every day as a new opportunity to prove, to improve, to get better, to create something. And part of that is also this podcast. Part of that is some other projects I'm working on. I'm trying to not spread myself too thin, but in a way I want to give back. I want to, if that's helping you take up a positive step as somebody who's been in my life before, if that's a viewer, if it's a content creator, if it's anyone who might be listening to this by chance, I want to contribute something. And I find that when you go through long periods of pain, long periods of suffering, that's where real progress is made. And sometimes all it takes is like for you to remember a quote from somebody, a song, a memory. It's some kind of like bright memory light situationship which just sort of pulls you out. I'll finish on this thought, which is I was listening to, must have been a podcast about the fact that me and you right now are sitting here, you in Poland, me in Slovenia, and we're having a conversation, and the fact that all of this is real, the mathematical odds of any of this happening are essentially zero. The statistical chance of us even existing is zero. And I think that itself gives so much beauty to life that I try to remind myself that every day. Just to snap out of it. Because you have, the bad day, the bad week, you start feeling a little bit depressed, start feeling a little bit melancholic, and just helps me just like take a deep breath in and just realize that whatever it is I'm doing, whether I'm happy or, really sad or thirsty or hungry or pissed or drunk, it doesn't matter, because all of it is beautiful because I'm alive. Because I'm being given an opportunity for something that most don't, right? Because just the chance of us being here as a percentage is zero. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, that was quite long.
Now I have to drink some water, man. But hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, I was considering clapping.
Well, it's the disease. When I see this microphone, and I always feel like I'm on a stream, and the problem with streaming is it's all monologue.
Yeah, it was story time. Just lacking PO2.
Yeah. Oh man, good memories. Good
Yeah,
memories.
but I think it's worth to mention that as I discovered your channel, uh, you said that you are Slovenian, so
Mm.
you're Slavic, and I was really impressed how you managed to get your English to the level it was back then. Now it's obviously better, but it was truly amazing, and it sparked a bit of hope in me that my English would improve over time, and uh, and basically it ended up being like that. I didn't learn English at school.
Hmm.
Uh, because it was impossible. Our schooling system is sort of terrible in that case. But uh, I learned English by watching YouTube videos, watching streams, your streams too, and uh, I think that. Uh, uh, I think that watching things without subtitles is
Hmm.
really good thing for learning foreign languages, especially if you know very basics. Because if you that also depends what language you're learning.
Mm.
If its alphabet is based on Latin, then it's easier for us, obviously. But if it's something else, then you first need to know that other alphabet.
Mm. I mean, the criticism that I have to give you, which I think is the mistake you potentially made and missing out a lot of English progress, was the fact that you didn't talk. That
Yeah,
you purposely muted your microphone, that you sort of omitted yourself from the
but
opportunity to have.
that's I think that's a very Polish thing to do. Like in our schooling system,
Mm.
we are not allowed to do mistakes. We are punished by
Uh,
it, and uh, that is the result that you rather not talk at all than try speaking.
I know exactly what you mean. In fact, there's a beautiful quote that I'll try to find, which
Like there is no easier way to learn than acknowledging your mistakes. Like if you learn on your mistakes, then you won't repeat them.
I mean, the problem that I find in the way that it's brought, and I'll try to find this particular quote because it's so beautiful. It's punishment is never good because think of War Thunder. If we go back to it, you know, it's a game that punishes you, and a lot of times you get punished for stuff that's not your fault. It's like the school system often will not prepare you for situations, and then it will punish you for them, which is extremely brutal and ruthless, very unfair. For you to ill prepare somebody and then punish them for that. Like,
Yeah, as I'm thinking now, yeah, as you mentioned War Thunder, I think that Krulok is the worst thing they ever created. Like
mm,
it doesn't serve any purpose. Just some people justify it that
yeah.
if it wasn't there, then more people would leave the battle before they do anything.
Mm. So here
But
I
it's
found,
not the case.
yeah, I agree. I found this quote here. It's actually from Meditations um, from Marcus Aurelius. So this is ancient stuff, and he says from Alexander the Grammarian, not to leap on mistakes or captiously interrupt when anyone makes an error of vocabulary, syntax, or pronunciation, but neatly to introduce the correct form of that particular expression by way of answer, confirmation, or discussion of the matter itself rather than its phrasing, or by some other felicitous prompting. Like basically what he's saying is, instead of you going, no, that's wrong, sit down, bad job, it's you feed back the information by just slightly correcting. Instead of saying, oh, you mispronounced that, you just give them the correct form back. And I noticed that I started doing that myself. Like, I would correct people, but I try to correct them without mocking them, without being a dick to them. It's maybe you remember, in War from the days, there were, people would come into the chat and they would just give out a wrong piece of info. And then depending on my mood, sometimes I would, I would make a joke out of them for the sake of the stream, make it entertaining. But sometimes be in a good mood. Like that time when Donnie was making fun of me, I was being polite with them. And it turns out, an individual who could very easily have become my arch nemesis became one of my best friends. And all because of being nice, all because of being, confirming instead of doing what, aggression and punishment and mistakes and, here, let me tell you how wrong you are. It's like this mindset of let me tell you how you're supposed to be doing, reminds me of backseat gamers. And we both know that the loudest backseat gamers were the worst. It's like soccer dad, on the couch with his beer belly, drinking, a new pint, staring at the football match and thinking, oh, you missed that goal. It's like, no, fatty, you wouldn't even get to the goal. It's hypocritical. It's, it's bad. And it's a shame that that your school system is built that way, because I think that it's not just your school system. I think the majority of languages, unfortunately, from what I've seen in Europe, are taught that way. They are taught through mistakes, and they turn off a lot of people from even wanting to learn. And it can make you hate the language. And when you hate the language, you're not going to learn it. And languages are beautiful. And, I'm personally very passionate for German. I think it's a beautiful language. But I've had a lot of German teachers who made me hate it. Because instead of focusing on the beauty and the good things and the useful things, we're focused on der, die, das, which is unimportant. You can have a completely fine conversation without using the correct feminine, masculine, or neutral, whatever they're called, prepositions, right?
Yeah, they are absent in Slavic languages. That's why we don't like them.
Is there anything else that you wanted to catch up on? Anything sort of dwelling in your mind?
Honestly, I have no idea. It's really spontaneous conversation, I'd say.
Do you have plans for the next 5 years? I usually say, what's your next 5 moves? Like, that's a question I think most people should ask themselves. Like, what is the next 5 things I'm doing?
I'm a really bad person to ask that question. What are my plans?
I think we're all bad people for that, but I think it's one thing that we can all improve.
Some people have
But
really precise plans. I had those, but then reality came to check, and like I wanted to be a pilot.
Mm. But you don't think there's a way for you to get there?
A civilian one, maybe, but that's no longer a priority. Like right now, I have to finish the uni, so get that engineer title, and after that we'll see. Maybe I'll be doing what I learn, or I have to transition to something else, other branch.
I think it's a good way to go. Finish university, get one thing under the roof, one thing figured out, get your first job. Have you done any jobs, anything whatsoever?
I had apprenticeship
Hmm.
this year in furniture factory, so I had some physical work. It's really hard, and as I'm not the strongest man on earth, it was quite problematic. Uh, Luckily, it was only for 1 day or two, maybe, but the rest of three week apprenticeship was rather boring, and we weren't doing anything.
I mean, that's
So
more motivation to eat more, do more pull-ups, you know, so that when physical labor comes, you can just conquer it. There's a beauty in that.
well, I have no idea what to talk about. Maybe you can bring some topic, or we can finish this.
I think we can. I think you can wrap it around. We've had a
Yeah.
very good conversation. I'm trying to think of a good thought to to wrap it on, because I'll tell you what my 5 steps are. Not in my life, but with you, because you've been around for what, 2014? He said, which makes it 9 years, correct?
Yeah, watching your channel
Yeah.
and moderator slightly less.
You're absolutely one of those people that I want to meet. I want to make also part of this podcast a way to sort of catch up, but also keep track of what's going on. Um, if that's just once a year, at the worst case, it's enough for me. It's to realize that, are you on the right path? Are you good? Are you, how are you moving along? Did you meet somebody? Are you dating? How's your new job going? Like, I'm genuinely curious, because I find it impossible to leave that part of life behind. Obviously, we've left the game, we've left the community aspect of it, but I find, dare I say, bromance, because having met Remy, and having seen how incredible it is to go around and meet people. I've met Napalm. Next year, I'm probably meeting Spitfly as he's coming to Europe. There's all these little things, and having said I'm going to come to Poland, it's happening. I mean, before I die, for sure, I'm coming to Poland. I want to have a massive meetup with all the guys, sit down, have a chat. Have a pint of Polish beer, have a glance at the Polish women, and just have a good time. Because for me, I've realized nothing fuels me more than seeing the people that were around me progress. The way that I was happy for you to progress as a moderator, the way that I was happy to see you progress as a player, and the way I was happy to buy Witcher for you, and have you go into what I think we
Yeah,
both
I
agree is
played it 7 times.
the greatest game of all time for us.
Yeah,
Uh,
last time I played it was 3 years ago.
mm.
7 times was enough.
Would you say it's objectively or subjectively the best game?
Subjectively.
God damn it, man. See, I would go and say I was objectively the best game. But yeah,
Like if you'd have to make some what's the word for it? Like some criteria
mhm.
to set what makes the game the best of all times.
I mean, for me, it's the experience you get. You know, for the price of that game, you get the equivalent.
Like the storyline is really
Mhm.
good, but uh, I feel like from the point of realism, it's a bit lacking. Like I played Kingdom Come Deliverance. I don't know if
Familiar
you've
with it,
heard.
yeah.
Yeah. So I like that the gameplay much more than Witcher. The story is really nice too, but the gameplay wise, you have to care about sleeping, eating, So that's
Correct, but I mean, don't we play games to escape reality? You know, isn't it a bit
I play simulators, so I'm much more into simulation, more believable reality.
right? But you don't have somebody, turning your chair upside down and simulating 15 Gs in your body when you're trying to do a U-turn.
Of
So,
course, of
so
course, but
there's that
yeah,
aspect.
I'd prefer to if Witcher 3 was more like it was described in books,
Mm,
because I've read those. So, for example, um, drinking potions before a fight, not during it.
mm-hmm.
Like it was done well in The Witcher 2, and they resigned from it in The Witcher 3, so it's more arcadey.
Yeah.
And also, I dislike the thing that in The Witcher 3 there are you wear two swords on your back.
Mm-hmm.
In books, you wore only one, the Geralt, the Witchers, um, and the other one was on usually on the horse or on saddlebags.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm missing that immersion from The Witcher 3.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the way the um, the monsters not all had to be killed with silver sword, and in The Witcher 3, silver sword is basically for monsters.
Mm-hmm.
Majority of stuff could be killed with steel sword. So
So there's some
I
incongruencies
yeah,
basically.
I'm really cherry picking, but yeah, and there are some inconsistencies in, for example, vampire classification
Mm-hmm.
that bothers me too.
You're being very nitpicky now, yeah.
Yeah,
But I would argue that what The Witcher did was a similar thing that what War Thunder did for us, and that is it was the perfect blend of simulation, arcadishness, and just realism in the sense of the story.
and as we are in the Witcher topic, have you watched the serial,
I
the
have,
series?
and it's to me it's very disappointing. I love the actor Henry Cavill, a goat.
He is now departing.
Yeah, and with him departing, I don't see any success going to that show ever again because he was the glue that held it all together. And even with him present, I think the writing was horrendous and the story was to me hard to follow. Having not read the books, I have most of the time really no idea what's going on. Um, a lot of the characters don't resemble, my image of them, and
Yeah, but you have image from games, but I have image from books and games, but I can say the same for
yeah,
most of.
I felt confused the whole time. I was like, um, I think they should have made it chronological to start with. I still haven't, or maybe I missed it because I watch shows nowadays whenever I'm cooking, so I'm never paying 100% attention to them. And that means that I sometimes miss stuff. I'll miss bits of dialogue. I'll
After
miss.
season 2, I cancelled Netflix. I watched season 3 on not so legal site, not to give the attention.
No, but I mean, realistically speaking, it's. Um, I don't watch that much stuff anymore nowadays, anyways. I'd rather
Me
watch,
too.
a quality movie, as opposed to something that's being streamed for
Like
the sake.
I think that quitting Netflix was
Mm,
pretty much as good decision as quitting War Thunder.
yeah.
Like it's uh, it's really not good to spend time this much on entertainment.
Yeah, but we do it. It's social
Especially
media,
it's a
TikTok.
really poor one, and Netflix is doing poor movies.
Mm,
There is that woke culture that's destroying it.
mm. Yeah, I would go as far as to say that art is dying, um, and there are very few people still keeping it alive. And and perhaps part of me is actually keen on trying to make content now, trying to get as many short form videos from the podcast, trying to get clips, trying to get quotes, trying to get just stuff created, because I feel like you said, the wokeness, the entertainment part of all of that just feels a little bit like it's degrading the world. And I feel like there's always going to be two aspects. Now, one of the approaches is what you did, which is you just quit. As far as I know, you don't use social media. You're not, you know.
I have Facebook, but it's solely for a messenger because
Yeah,
it's better to have one when you're in university studying.
correct. Yeah,
But
same at
other
work
than that,
usually. Yeah, but I mean,
I don't have Instagram. I mean, I have the account, but it's never really attracted me. I don't like to watch people's fake lives. Um,
you're a bit of a ghost in that aspect, you know.
yeah, really value my privacy, so it's really important to me not that nobody connects my nickname and my real name and appearance.
And I
So
respect that about you always, because I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum. It's not that I would personally desire fame, but I desire creating. I realize that for me, feel like I've been put on this planet to create stuff, and that if I don't create, then I feel pretty bad. I feel, literally depressed if I cannot share something. If I read something new, something interesting, I want to share it with somebody. And I think that if there is a use for social media, if there is a use for these platforms, it should be for good debates, for good criticism, for good topics, and for catching up with old friends like yourself.
yeah, so maybe next year you'll see my face for the first time.
Maybe it'll happen this year, maybe I'll stake out some.
Tomorrow you'll come to Poland.
You never know, man. I'll just knock on your door, having dedoxed
You
you.
have to know where they are.
Yeah, well, I'll look around the entire Poland. It can't be that big,
On Google Earth.
I'll have to bring a Panzer tank with me to make it easier, but we'll find it. No, but seriously, Quetz, has been a pleasure having you on. We'll be in touch. I wish you all the best, all the luck. You at university, with the future work, with all the endeavours, with the ladies, of course, and that you continue being such a positive, calculated person.
Thank you, and I wish you the best too.
Much love, man. It was delightful.